the Yontif of Shavuos is quickly approaching, so we'll start discussing some Inyane Shavuos. There's a famous Gemara in Psachim, Samches Amid Beis. The Gemara discusses how does one celebrate Yontif, Simchas Yontif. So the Gemara tells us a dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua based on different psukim. So what does the Gemara say? So the Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Ein lo la'adam biyantav ela o ochel v'shosa o yoshe v'shoneh. Rabbi Eliezer says you have a choice. You could eat all day, eat and drink, or you could sit and study. The choice is yours. Life is full of choices, and choices have consequences. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, chelkehu, you divide the day. Chatzi lachila ushtiya v'chetzo lebeis hamedrash. Half the day eating and drinking, the other half a day studying Torah in the Beis HaMedrash. So it's a dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Should the focus be on the spiritual learning, or, as Rabbi Yeshua says, should it be on both? What?
Both.
Yeah. And of course Rabbi Eliezer gives you a choice. So the first, the Gemara wants to explain the dispute based on the psukim in the Chumash. So V'amar Rabbi Yochanan Ushneya Mikra Echad Darshu. They both come to their conclusions based on how they learn the psukim, the verses in the Torah. Kasav Echad Omer, one pasuk says, Atzeres Hashem Elokecha, that Atzeres, the Yontif, should be for God. And therefore you should consecrate Yishem to God. Because of Echad Omer, Atzeres Tiyeh Lachem. And the other pasuk says it should be for you. So which one is it? It's an apparent contradiction in the psukim. Should Yontif be for you, or Yontif be for God? So Rabbi Eliezer Savar, O Kul Hashem, O Kul Hachem. Since there's two psukim, an apparent contradiction, therefore you get to choose. Pick and choose. Either you could sit and learn all day, or you could eat and drink all day. Of course, Rabbi Eliezer will have to agree that you have to eat something, because there's a mitzvah of having a Sudas Yontif. But of course, we all know the difference between a meal on Yontif and a meal during the week. A meal during the week could take a couple of minutes, 5-10 minutes, everyone's on the run. A Yontif meal could take 2-3 hours. But of course, he agrees to the basics. You have to make Kiddush and have a Suda, as we'll see. So Rabbi Eliezer says you have a choice, and Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Chalku Chatzu Hashem v'Chatzu Lachem. And Rabbi Yeshua says no. Since we have two psukim, we do half and half. So Rabbi Yosef Engel explains that we know we have a principle. What do we do when we have two psukim that seem to contradict one another?
Like the third one.
Correct. So Ba Hashlishi Umachriya Beinehem. We look for the third pasuk to tell us which one's right. That's the normal principle. There's only one problem. What happens if there is no third pasuk, at least that we could find? Then what do we do? So Rabbi Yosef Engel says this is a dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Eliezer says if you don't have a third pasuk, then you could choose either or. And Rabbi Yeshua says no, if you don't have a third pasuk, we have to combine both. And that's the way we pass, and we follow the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, as you pointed out, Chatzi Lashem, B'Chatzi Lachem. So that's the Gemara. So now, the Gemara points out this machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua on how you celebrate Yontif is only regarding the Yontif of Pesach, the one we just had, and the Yontif of Sukkot. And maybe we'll get into how does one fulfill the mitzvah of Simchas Yontif in terms of Basar V'Yayin, in terms of having meat, etc. So this whole dispute is only by Pesach and Sukkot. However, the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Hakol Modim Ba'atzeres. Everybody agrees. Both Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer agree the Be'inan Nami Lachem, that you need Lachem. Even Rabbi Eliezer, who usually on Sukkot and Pesach will give you the option of Kulo Lashem, even Rabbi Eliezer agrees when it comes to Shavuos, you have to have a meal. My taima, what is the reason of Rabbi Eliezer? Why over here by Pesach and Sukkot it's okay to make the choice, but by Shavuos you have no choice, you have to have a meal. Why? My taima. Yom shenitna bo Torahu. Since it was the day the Torah was given, therefore you have to have a meal. We have to understand what that means. It sounds counterintuitive to me, but we'll explain it shortly. But let's explain what he says. He says, since it's the day the Torah was given, therefore you're obligated to have a meal. And the Gemara continues and says, Amar Rabba says, Hakol modim b'Shabbos, de be'inan nami lachem. Everyone also agrees that when it comes to Shabbos, you have to have a Suda. My taima, why do I have to have a Suda on Shabbos? Because the Torah says, or it actually says in Yeshaya, V'karasa l'Shabbos oneg. You shall proclaim the Shabbos a delight. And therefore they learn out, V'karasa l'Shabbos oneg, one is obligated to have a Suda. That's what the Maharsha explains on Shabbos in Kuf Yud Ches 118a. The word oneg, delight, has the connotations of feasting. Hence we learn you have to feast on Shabbos. Rabbeinu David, one of the other commentators, says a little different. He says the requirement to fast, to eat on Shabbos, is actually biblical in nature, not just learned that from the Karasa l'Shabbos oneg. And therefore, whatever the reason, so far we said Shavuos everyone agrees you have to eat, Shabbos everyone agrees you have to eat. One more day we'll get. Amar Rav Yosef, Hakol modim b'Purim de be'inan nami lachem. All authorities agree in the case of Purim, you also have to have a festive Yomai Taima, because the pasuk says Yomei Mishteh v'Simcha Ksiv Bei. Since it says Purim is a day of feasting and rejoicing, therefore one has an obligation. So the Gemara lists three exceptions. Yontif Shavuos is the exception to the rule of the Shalosh Regalim. Pesach and Sukkot, we have a machlokas, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer, whether you could go kulo Hashem or half and half. But the machlokus is only by Pesach and Sukkot. By Shavuos, everyone agrees that you have to have a meal, and so too Shabbos and Purim. We'll see what does Purim and Shavuos have in common. We'll see. So let's try to understand it now. What is that? I would have thought the opposite. Rabbi Eliezer, who says normally you have a choice of learning all day or eating all day, I would have learned the Gemara. The Rabbi Eliezer says when it comes to Shavuos that you have to learn all day. You don't have the option. And the Gemara says the opposite. The Gemara says Rabbi Eliezer agrees that you have to have a meal. So what's going on here? What is that? What is the basis for having a meal? Because it was Yom Shenitna Bo Torah, because it was the day the Torah was given. So the Ramban, at the end of Parshas Mishpatim, Mishpatim also deals with Kabbalas HaTorah. It's a continuation from Yisro. So the Torah tells us, Vayochu Vayishtu. What did the Jews do at Har Sinai? They ate and they drank. They were a bunch of party animals on Har Sinai. What were they doing, eating and drinking? So from here the Ramban points out, we see Mikan, from here we learn Sha'oseh Suda B'Gemar Shel Torah, that any time there's some type of accomplishment by Torah, we have a Chiyuv Suda, we have a Sudas Hodah. We have to praise God. And where do we see that? We see that at Har Sinai. The ultimate Kabbalah HaTorah, we see it by. So too by Shavuos. Shavuos also is the day of Kabbalah HaTorah, and therefore one is obligated to have a meal. Why Purim? So Purim, we all know a famous Gemara in Shabbos, Peches Amid Aleph, that the Gemara Torah says, Vayitziatzvu betachtis hahar, and the Jews were on the bottom of the mountain, and the Gemara learns out that God turned the mountain over on the Jewish people and said, this is at Har Sinai, so if you accept the Torah, good. If not, here will be your burial. So they did the wise choice, they accepted the Torah. However, the Gemara says they might have done the wise choice, but Mikan Moda Rabbadim Deraisa. It's not binding, because any commitment made under duress isn't considered a commitment. So therefore, what do we gain? So the Gemara says, Kimu v'Kippur, during the time of Purim, they reaccepted the Torah B'Ava. So we see that Purim also was a time of Kabbalah HaTorah. And that's how some explain, that's why on Purim we have a Chiyuv Suda, an obligation to eat a meal. But on Chanukah we do not. For the different reasons, given the famous answer of the Lavush is that Chanukah was a spiritual persecution, so we celebrate spiritually. But Purim was a physical thing. Haman wanted to kill us, so we celebrate in a physical way. But others point out this reason, that since Purim was the day of Kabbalah HaTorah, hence you're obligated. So that's what the Ramban writes, and that's what the Gemara seems to say, that everyone agrees when it comes to Shavuos, it's the day you have a Chiyuv Suda, because it's the day that Torah was given. Any day you have an accomplishment by Torah, you have to have a Suda, you have to have a party. In fact, that's the prevalent practice. Someone has a Siyam. You finish a certain amount of Gemara, or Mishnayos, or whatever, or Tanakh, and you make a party at the conclusion. Why do you make a party? Again, anytime there's any accomplishment by Torah, we want to make a Suda Sada and praise. We want to praise God and have a Suda. So we have a source for it. The source is Har Sinai. But we still have to understand it a little more. Why is it that when you have an accomplishment by Torah, you have to have a feast? I mean, why not just learn all night? So on this, the Mefarshim point out, Pi Machshava, that through, they explain, because that's the essence of Judaism, in contrast to other religions. Certain religions that it's all about the spiritual, but they abstain from the physical. They don't get married. They live out in a monastery. What's holiness? Holiness is being away from the world. Working on yourself is bodhisattva and is going away, not having to do with people. The Torah is telling us it's just the opposite. What's Kedusha? What the Torah's instruction for life. It's how to live in this world. Next world we'll get our reward. This world, we have to live in this world. We have to actually live with people, affect people, teach people, and we have to be able to be Makadish Techol. Take the mundane and make it holy. There's the holy and the not yet holy. As we explained many times, the charming Medrash. After Noah came out of the flood, the Medrash says he slaughtered 4 animals. He was planting a vineyard and he slaughtered 4 animals. Lamb, lion, a monkey, pig. Why these 4 animals? So our rabbis were well aware of the dangers of wine. Yet every Shabbos, every Yontif, every wedding, every Simcha, we do it over a cup of wine. Because what happens when you drink wine? If you drink a little bit too much, you become as sleepy as a lamb. A little more than that, you become as fearless as a lion. A little more than that, you start acting like a monkey. And you drink totally to the excess, you start acting like a pig, cursing, vomiting, throwing up, etc. So Chazal are well aware of the dangers of wine, yet they said every simcha do it over wine because that's what Judaism is all about, is to taking the physical and using it for spiritual, like the famous story with of Shimon Bar Yochai, as we mentioned last week when we were discussing Lag BaOmer. He was studying in the cave, and he walked out of the cave after studying for 12 years, and he saw someone working in the physical world, and he burned them up. And the Basko said, the voice from heaven said, "Get back in the cave, you're not ready for this world." And he went in, he came back years later, and he was able to see it. This world is to be Makadish Techol, is to take the mundane, the everyday thing, and use it for spiritual reasons. In fact, that's Uri Zohar, who is one of the famous rabbis now in Israel. He goes to the discos, he goes to the jails, and he gets people observant. Uri Zohar was not always observant himself. He's about tshuva. He used to be very anti-religious. In fact, he wrote many books. In one of his books, in one of the chapters, he discusses, when I was secular, not only was I secular, but I hated the religious Jews. And once I became religious, I started thinking about, why did I hate religious Jews so much? I mean, more than just being religious, there was something more about it. And I thought about it long and hard. And this is why it came out. You know why? Because if you look at other religions, so they're not getting married, they're not partaking in the physical pleasures. Okay, so I'm getting this world. I don't believe in the next world anyway. You wanna say you're getting the next world? Okay, that's your choice. But religious Jews, they enjoy this world also. They have Yontif meals, Shabbos meals. They're involved in the physical world, and yet they claim they're getting reward for it also. And that's what bothers me, because I realized that other people, so they talked about the next world, okay, so that you could believe in. I don't believe in the next world, so I don't have to worry, but these people claim they were getting this world and the next world. And now he come around and understood that the purpose is to take the mundane and make it holy. In fact, that's the highest level. As we'll see, we'll have some more discussions on Shavuos, but there's a minute to eat dairy on Shavuos. among other things. So, and we'll give many reasons, but one of the reasons given is milk. The Gemara says, Dam Nerkar, of a woman's nursing, she doesn't get a period. Dam Nekar Vanasa Cholav, her blood turns into milk. So milk represents Tara. At first it started off as blood, Tameh, and it ends up white milk, Tahora. That's the ultimate, as the Bnei Yisachar explains, that there's halacha of bitul b'shishim. If, let's say, little milk falls into your chicken soup, the halacha is it's kosher, the milk becomes nullified. But I'm asked all the time, so, but Rabbi, would you eat it? Of course I tell them I would, and then by that time they already threw out the soup. They're just worried about if they have to kasher, if they could kasher the soup bowl or not. But the point being, and so I'm asked, could you be machmir? Could I say, I don't want to rely on bitul b'shishim? So the Achronim bring down that's heresy. That's apicursis. Once Chazal told us the rule is bitul b'shishim, that's it. And in fact, the Bnei Yisachar said not only is that it, but that's premium food. On the next United Shabbos, you should be serving soup to the whole community. Because something that was once prohibited, and now it became permitted, Isser Nasa Heter, that's the highest level. And that's what the Torah is all about. Living in this world, taking the everyday things and using them for spiritual purposes. And that's why, that's the pshat in the Gemara. Hakol modim b'atzeres. Everybody agrees, even Rabbi Eliezer, who normally says you have a right to learn all day and not focus on the feasting on Sukkot and Pesach. Even he agrees when it comes to Shavuos, Hakol modem dinam lachem, because Yom Shenidna Bo Torah, the day the Torah was given, that's a day of feast and fasting, like we learned from Har Sinai, Vayochel Vayishtu, and that's the essence of the Torah, is how to live in this world, taking the physical things in this world and using them for the service of God.